Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. This is episode 9 of Learn Lightroom 6, also called Lightroom CC. In this episode, I'm going to continue to process some images, and hopefully along the way, I'll introduce some new ideas and concepts and tools in Lightroom that will help you process your images. At the end of the video, I'm going to talk about the raw files that I'll be making available for download and about the video themselves. Right now, though, I want to jump right into the processing. We're going to start off with this image. It's a street image that I took a few weeks ago. It's going to be in my book, The Comprehensive Guide to Street Photography, which should be available in a couple weeks. Now, as you know, I like to maximize my workspace, and the way I do it is I get in the develop module and I hit Shift Tab to get rid of all the panels. Then I just open up the panel I need, which in this case is the panel on the right. Now, I like this image. I was walking down Elmwood Avenue, and there's a coffee shop here, and I saw this wet paint sign, and I saw this guy sitting on the bench, and I thought that was kind of amusing. Unfortunately, it was difficult to get a decent shot because this is a little like cafe area, I guess, outside, and there's like a little like 3.5 foot wrought iron fence that is fencing it off. So my like knees and thighs were right up against the fence and that's as close as I could get without going through the gate and entering inside of here. So um, it needs some work. I probably have to crop it a little and do some things. And actually, right here where it says wet paint isn't very prominent. It's not very noticeable. So I want to do something to make that a little bit more noticeable. So right away, as I look at the image, I see I have four interesting people here. I have this guy looking at me. Of course, the guy sitting in the white paint, and I have this guy looking at me with one eye, and then this woman that's just oblivious to my presence. So we're just going to start out in the basic panel like I normally do. And I jump right down into the highlights slider first. I don't do exposure's fine, and I don't have to worry about contrast. So with the highlights, I'm just going to move it around a little bit and see where I like it a little better. And I tend to like it just a little bit low, just down a little bit. So maybe -22 looks pretty good. I'd like to open up the shadows a little bit and get a little more inside of the building. So I'm going to open up the shadows a little bit. And I skip whites and blacks, as you know by now, and I'll go right down to clarity. And I don't want to go too crazy on clarity. It will make them look a little bit, I don't know, plasticky on their skin. So I'm going to just bring clarity up. Maybe +23 is good. And right now I'm going to leave vibrance alone. At this point, when I do street photography, I'd say 80% of my images are black and white, maybe more, 90%. But I do have an odd color image here and there. In this image, probably will be a color image because of the wet paint, and we have the brightly painted bench that this guy is sitting on. So I might want to leave it in color, but we're going to experiment a little in the minute. So as you know by now, before I do whites and blacks, I like to jump down to the tone curve and add contrast. So we're going to try medium contrast, then I'm going to try strong contrast. And I like them both, to tell you the truth, but I'm going to leave it on medium contrast for now. I always could come back and change these. I'm going to adjust the white and black point now, and I I mentioned there's two different ways to do it, as you probably nauseatingly know by now by me saying it so much. And the one way is to hold the Shift key and double click, and the other way is to hold the Alt Option key and adjust the sliders to your taste. Now, there is a third way, and I'm going to show you that now. And remember in last episode we talked about the clipping indicators? You could use those also. Meaning, let's go to the highlights indicator. It's the one on the right. I'm going to turn it on by clicking on it. And you can see there's nothing red in the image, so I'm not clipping any highlights. But what you do is you would go to the white slider now, and you would slide it to the right, and you can see how I got red here. Then you could just back it off until the red disappears. Now it's kind of tricky to do, but it looks like +2 might be the proper adjustment for that. So we'll turn that back off. Then we could go to the other one. You can see as I hover over, I'm already clipping up in here, but that's okay because that's the inside of the building. And we could do similarly for the blacks. You could move that around. You could maybe get rid of all the clipping up there if you want. That is just another way to adjust them. I don't like that way at all. I never, ever, ever, ever do it that way. I do it, as you know, I hold the Alter Option key in, I click on the white, I bring it up, and I just bring it back, which actually is going to give me probably the same exact, well, it should give me the same exact number, and it does, +2. But where I adjust the blacks is different, and I'm used to the way I do it. I hold the Alter Option key down, I click down, and I bring it down till I get, now I know up in here is going to be black, so I'm actually pretty much ignoring that. I'm looking everywhere else. And I want some more like darkness down in here. So to me, that's a nice black point. I like that point right there. So it is a pretty colorful image as it is. I'm going to hit the I key on my keyboard, and you can see it's a Fuji RAW file. I shot it with my Fujifilm X-T1. It's 1/420th of a second at f11 ISO 800, and I used a 23 millimeter lens. So I think I'm done for the basic. I may come back and mess with vibrance. I don't know, but I'm done with that for now. Tone curve I'm done with. We're not going to do anything with HSL or split toning. I'm going to go right to detail. I'm going to zoom in, and I want to just kind of look at the brick and this guy here that's sitting on the wet paint. Although I assume the paint was probably dry. I'm sure he checked it before he sat on it, but I thought it was a funny picture nonetheless. So anyways, I am not going to take the time to really adjust this the proper way. As I mentioned in the last video, I do have a video that talks about the sharpening and noise reduction sliders and goes into great detail about all of what the sliders do. And I don't want this video to run long. The last one was almost an hour because I talked too much. So I'm going to leave it at 65. That just eyeballing it looks pretty good. I'm not really concerned about noise. I don't really see any noise issue here. So I am not going to even add any noise reduction. Now, the interesting thing about Fuji RAW files, if you look under profile, it says built-in lens profile applied. Now you'll only see this in Lightroom 6, although it is applied in Lightroom 5 as well. It just doesn't say so down here. So I do not have to apply any profile corrections at all because they're already built into the RAW file from the camera itself. So there's nothing for me to do there. So I'm just going to close that down. Now, I'm going to skip effects for a minute. I might put in a dark vignette like I often do, but I am going to go down to camera calibration. And I wanted to talk to you about two things. The first thing is the process engine. There have been obviously 6 different versions of Lightroom, and if you click on this little drop down right here, you can see there's 3 different dates: 2012, 2010, and 2003. Those are 3 different process engines that were used in Lightroom. And Lightroom changed considerably, particularly between 2010 and 2012. And if you accidentally put in, let's say, 2010 as your process engine, your sliders, I'm not going to do it now because I already set these sliders and I don't want to lose the setting. All these sliders, not all of them, but many of them will change. And you may look and your highlights and shadows will be gone, and you're going to be wondering what happened. Well, what happened was you might have inadvertently changed your process engine to 2010 or 2003. So just double check that if your sliders look funky. They don't look like they used to look. Now, the main thing I want to show you though in camera calibration tab is the profile. Now, this is specific to your make and model camera, especially the make. Nikon will have different settings in here than Canon, and this Fuji is going to have different settings also. Also, this is only in RAW files. If you shoot JPEG, you get what you get. The profile is already baked into the JPEG. The advantage, another one of many advantages of shooting RAW, is the profile isn't baked into the RAW file. All the profiles are in the RAW file and you could choose one. Now in the case of Fuji, there's a number of different profiles. There's these film simulation modes. You could see there's Provia Standard. Back in the film days, there was Fujifilm Provia Film. there was Velvia film, there was Astia film. So I could just click on one of these and you'll see the color kind of changed because it's mimicking that film that was very popular in the 60s, 70s when film, of course, was used exclusively. Now we could go to the Velvia and you could see the red of the brick got a little more enhanced. Astia is really good for portraiture. You can see it's a little softer look. Now, one of my favorites, my absolute favorite probably film simulation is Classic Chrome. And it's just kind of a high contrast, low saturation color. And you could see it kind of sucked a lot of the color out, but it increased a lot of saturation. Now, in this case, I didn't like what it did, tell you the truth, because it kind of made his features look kind of really dark. Not You can't really see him as well. And this guy up here almost looks kind of plasticky looking, if you could see real closely on his face. So I don't like that look at all. The guy in the light here looks pretty good. Now, also, there's these black and white. I'm going to jump. It also has pro negative high contrast and pro negative standard contrast. Then it also has 4 different black and white modes. It just has straight monochrome mode. Now it also has monochrome modes which simulate back in the film days when we shot. Sometimes we would put, if we were shooting black and white film, we would put a specific color filter over the lens. A yellow filter would enhance sky. A red filter would enhance sky even more and actually enhance like grassland and things like that. The green filter was good for skin tone. So if you were taking a black and white portrait, you would use a green filter. Well, you could simulate that when you shoot Fuji. There's a yellow filter, and you could see how it made the bench considerably darker. There's a red filter, made the bench even darker. And now we go down to the green filter, and the bench got lighter, and it switched it all about. Now, as I mentioned, in this image here, I think it works better with color because the bench was so brightly freshly painted, and we have the wet paint here. So I'm going to try to choose between the color profiles that are here. We have the Adobe standard. This is what Adobe is interpreting the raw file as. Then we have Provia standard, and it really enhanced color quite a bit. The Velvia standard, and it made the bricks jump out a little more. And Astia soft. Well, I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. Um, I just like, I guess, the Provia standard. I'm going to go with that. Now, with that said, you may want to, before you do anything in the basic panel, you may want to jump down here and choose your profile first, because you see the profile really did a lot to the image, and you might have adjusted it to your liking and then all of a sudden throw in a different profile and it switched a lot of things around, added a lot more contrast or took contrast away, and you may have to you may find yourself going back up into the basic panel and adjusting things or going to the tone curve to readjust contrast and things like that. So it's up to you whether you want to jump down here right away and add your or change your profile. Now I'm going to show you one kind of trick also. I'm not sure where I got this from now because I didn't think this up. I got this from somebody. I know a woman told me this stuff, a friend of mine who's a wedding photographer, and she told me where she got it from, and then I just can't remember where it's from. But anyways, this, I call this the single slider photo pop. If you go down here to saturation and you just, of the blue primary, and you just push that to the right, a lot of times, now in this image, I don't think it's working that well, but it will really enhance an image. And I'm going to do it later in a landscape image, and let's see if we could get that to look a lot better. But in this image here, it's just making it look oversaturated. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, I've settled on the Provia standard for the profile that I'm using, the camera profile. So the only, well, there's a couple more things. I got this guy over here, so I got to crop a little bit because this, hand is in here. I don't like that. Um, the rest also, I want to enhance this wet paint so it's more noticeable. So I'm going to get a brush, And I'm going to reset the sliders by double clicking on effect. And I think I need to add some contrast. So I'm going to turn contrast all the way up. I want to add contrast between the letters of the wet paint and the actual white piece of paper. So I'm simply going to just paint over the sign like that. And I hover over that, and you can see I just painted over the sign. Now, we're going to go to clarity now and turn that. That did the opposite of what I wanted it to do. See how it's making the white actually very bright. It's actually, mid-tone contrast. So we have this contrast turned way up. Let's mess with highlights. If I turn highlight down a little bit, it seems to make it a little more noticeable. We're messing around with shadows. Shadows make it a little more noticeable. Um, I don't think sharpness is going to do anything. Nah. Yeah, let's see here. There's before and there's after. Now what I can do is try to paint a little better. I don't have it painted very well in the corners, so it kind of looks stupid. So bear with me here. It's hard for me to talk and think at the same time. I'm one of those people that can't do stuff like that. Okay, that's good enough for the sake of this demonstration. I'm going to go back to shadows and highlights just a little bit. There, I'd say that that is good right there. So I made that a little more prominent, so it's a little more noticeable. Now, I mentioned that I'd like to try to get rid of this arm, but I kind of want to keep him in there. So I'm going to go to the crop tool, and I'm just going to grab this corner. I have the padlock locked, so I preserve my 3:2 aspect ratio. That is important to me. It may not be important to you. It's up to you whether you want to do that. Um, See, it's kind of tough. What I'd like to do, right here you see this is a rule of thirds overlay on the image. And I'd like to try to keep these two folks right near these lines. That's the third vertical lines. So 1/3 in, 1/3 in. And try to keep them around those lines. So pretty much like right there without losing this guy over here. Now, if you don't like rule of thirds, while you have the crop tool open, you hit the O key on your keyboard and you'll get different crop overlays to choose from. So you have this one that has these diagonals where you could line up diagonal lines and diagonal points of interest. And the idea here is you want, again, put something interesting, usually in the points of intersection. And then you just keep hitting O and you'll toggle through these different things. This is triangles. This is good for when you have three things in an image, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to hit O again. Now this is um, its name's escaping me. It's similar to the rule of thirds. Instead of being exactly 1/3 spacing between the lines, we have 40%, 20%, 40% going horizontally and vertically. And this, some people prefer this overlay. You hit O again, and then you have this Fibonacci spiral. And the idea here is you want the point of interest right there on this. Now, on some of these, you could flip them, and you would hold the Shift key in and hit O, and you could see how it shifts. It gets shifted again, and just keep shifting it until you get this point around where you want it, and then you crop accordingly. So if you're taking this comes in handy if you're taking a image of a cat or a dog profile. You'd like their eye right over this, so you would hit Shift O until you get it to the right spot. Let's say your dog is facing this way and their snout is coming out this way. You'd have this over their eye, and you'd crop it that way. So again, then you could just keep hitting O and go through it. These are some crop guides, 4x5, 5x7, and 2x3. And hit O again, and we have just a grid. This helps you straighten your image. And then hit O again, and we're back to the rule of thirds. So I like this crop right here, so I'm going to hit Enter, and I have the crop. Now, I'm pretty much done with the image. I have this guy looking at me and this guy looking at me, and I have this woman oblivious to me, this guy with the wet paint. It's an okay image. Now, it occurred to me that There is, as I alluded to before, there is kind of a compositional idea of odd numbers, it's called. And odd numbers of things usually are stronger in a composition than even numbers, meaning if you take a picture of a single tree, it's usually better than a picture of two trees next to each other. And three trees next to each other would be stronger than two trees. So it's like odd number, and it's just a very strong kind of compositional rule. Also, if you arrange these odd things in a triangle, it's a very strong compositional suggestion for the viewer in that their eye, let's say we're just going to look at these three folks here. Our eye will look at him, bounce to her, bounce to him, or whatever. We're looking along these three people. And it's a very strong suggestion when you could create an image that has this like odd number of three and it's in a triangle type spacing. The problem with the image as it is now, I have this guy over here. So it's kind of ruining it. But it occurs to me if I crop this vertically, then it will take care of getting rid of him, and it probably would put more emphasis on these three. But I kind of like what I already did, and I don't want to lose it. Now, remember in the previous episode, I created a virtual copy. There's another thing you could do, maybe you would prefer over a virtual copy, and that is a snapshot. And if we go over here to the left panel, and you go right here, and you can see there's snapshots, and you can see I don't have any snapshots right now. If I just click the plus key, you can see it comes up with a name of the date and the time. So I'm going to override that, and I'm just going to call it horizontal. And I'm going to say create. Now, I could now go on processing this image a whole different way. I could make it, black and white if I want or whatever. And all I have to do is open this little tab here of snapshots and click on horizontal, and I'm right back to this point. So we save this. It's kind of taking a snapshot of all our work to this point. Now I'm going to go on and crop the image. So I'm going to go back to this crop tool. Now I'd like to flip this aspect ratio from 3 to 2 to 2 to 3. So all I have to do is hit the X key on the keyboard, and you can see now I have a 2 to 3 vertical portrait orientated crop. Now I'm going to come in here with my little hand, and I'm going to move it around a little bit. And I have the padlock lock, so I could pull on any of these handles and I will maintain that 2 to 3 aspect ratio, or actually, yeah, 2 to 3. So um, kind of like these two on the ends, this guy in the middle, the wet paint in the middle of those three. That's good to me. I'm going to hit enter. And now you could see I have this vertical crop and we have the three people. And I do believe that this is probably a little stronger of an image the way it's cropped compared to the previous image, even though I really liked this guy that was over here because he was looking right at me wondering what the heck I was doing, because with a 23mm lens I was very close to these people. And it's fine. So maybe I'll save this. So I'm going to get a snapshot. I'm going to click the little plus here, and I'm going to call this vertical and hit enter. Now if I want to go back to the horizontal, I could click there. There's the horizontal. I could click there to go to the vertical, and I could continue processing either of these if I so choose. So there's a real quick alternative to making a virtual copy. Now that image is done. We're going to go on to this next image, and this one is kind of unique in that it's a very high key image, and I took this image on purpose. It was a super sunny day. This was actually the dead of winter, and there was a ton of snow in my backyard, and my desk in my office, right behind me is this big window, and my cat was sitting there looking at me like this. So I had my camera right on my desk, and I flipped around, and I wanted this high key image. I wasn't going to fight the light. I was going to make the light work for me. And since it was so bright, I wanted his. I mean, I could have like did matrix metering, and he would have been so terribly underexposed. So I just metered on him, and you can see he really is, his face This is my cat Eddie. Eddie's face is perfectly exposed, but everything else is pretty much blown out. Well, that's cool. That's all right. I kind of like the look. This is a super high key image. This is a Fuji RAW file. It was a XT1 again, Fujifilm XT1, 1/25th of a second, f5.6 ISO 200, and I had a 35 millimeter lens on this, 1.4. It was at 5.6 though. So, anyways, I want to enhance this kind of high key look. That's the idea. So, we're going to go to the basic panel, and I'm going to go to the highlights first, and I'm probably going to move them around and see how when I move it down it's bringing out detail over here. I don't want that detail. I don't want any detail. I just want it blown out. So I'm going to put highlights way up. Now shadows, on the other hand, I could just move it around and see, you know, where I like Eddie exposed. And I do like it down just a little bit. There's a little more color in Eddie here. So then we go to clarity. We're going to go to clarity, and not a lot of clarity actually, because clarity is making this shear more pronounced. So actually, I don't think I'm going to do anything with clarity yet. Again, just because the slider is there doesn't mean you have to use it. I'm going to jump down to tone curve. It's a medium contrast. It's some strong contrast. I like the medium contrast. It added a little more detail in Ed. All right, now the whites and the blacks. I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key and click down on the white slider, and I'm going to move it to the right. Now, kind of, see, and you know what? This kind of becomes, as I'm doing it now, this is almost worthless doing it that way. I really should just look at the image because I want stuff to be clipped. I want stuff blown out here. So I'm just going to move it to the right, like right to there. I'm getting a lot of stuff blown out now over in here, but I got Eddie looking pretty cool. And then for blacks now, I'll hold the Alt or Option key and I'll bring it down until I get some little more stuff bleeding through, and that's going to be pretty much all on Ed. So Ed's a little darker. So that's coming along pretty cool. Now I'm going to go back to clarity for a second and just see, and you know what, just up a little bit, it seems to make Ed look pretty cool. You could see the detail there. So I'm going to have clarity up just a little bit. Now I've got it in my mind that I'm going to make this a black and white image. So I'm not worried about vibrance or saturation. So I'm not even going to touch those yet. I did tone curve, that's fine. We're going to go right to detail. I'm going to come in and, well, again, I'm just going to do it quick because for sake of time. So I'm just going to bring it up around 73, and you could see it added, I hope you could see in the video, it's so subtle usually, that it added a lot of detail on Eddie's face, but it's not adding, when I'm looking over here, it didn't add it really any noise. So I'm happy with that. I'm not even going to mess with noise reduction. I'm not going to do anything with lens corrections because again, this was the Fuji X-T1. It has the built-in lens profile already applied, so we don't have to worry about that. Effects. Now this might be the rare time that I put in a white vignette like that, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm going to jump down to camera calibration. And as I mentioned, I kind of have this in my mind already that I am going to make this black and white. So I'm going to jump right down to monochrome and use that camera calibration. I kind of like that look right there. Now that is kind of the look I'm going for. Let's just try the yellow filter. It actually blew out his ear a little more. The red filter, it blew it out even a little more. And the green filter, and it made Eddie a little darker. I kind of liked it with no filters, just straight monochrome. And that looks pretty cool to me right there. Now, there's a couple things that are bothering me about the image. Right here, you can see this shear is just kind of coming in a little bit where everything else is blown out. So I am going to get the spot removal tool, and I'm going to have opacity at 100 in heal mode. I'm going to have feathering around 72 is fine. I'm going to get a larger brush, like right about there. I used Magic Mouse, Apple Magic Mouse on my my MacBook Air or MacBook Pro. I'm sorry, and I could adjust brush size by just running my finger right on the top of the mouse. If you have a PC and you have a mouse with a center click wheel, you could use that. If you don't have either of those, you could use the right and left bracket keys to make it larger or smaller. Now, from I think it was Lightroom 5.4 on, we could actually paint with the spot removal tool. So I could click down and just paint down like that. You can see it sampled up over in here. Now, the unique thing here to this image is because this is white, you cannot see my overlay because it's white. My overlay is white. And if you go down here and you go to tool overlay, yeah, no, I thought I could change the color of this overlay, but I can't. I only could change it the brush, the actual brush overlay, not of this. So sorry about that. So we're kind of lost. We can't really see exactly what we're doing, but I could see it got rid of what I wanted it to get rid of. So I'm done with that. Now I mentioned I might add a white vignette. Let's just see if that does anything. Yeah, I think a little one here, I kind of like what it does right in here. It's actually a larger one here. I'm going to reset it. And I'm going to move it to the right. And I kind of like what it's doing here. So this image is done. I'm going to hit before and after. And that's this high key image. And I actually had this in my mind right when I was snapping this picture of what I wanted it to be. A lot of times that doesn't happen. I discover what I want it to be during processing. But this is one that right when I was taking the picture, I knew I wanted it to come out with this look. Now, I'm going to show down the film strip down here, and you can see I have 3 other images that we're taking during this little photo shoot with Ed. And you can see he's a cat, so he doesn't listen, he moves around. But I want to process these, but I want to save time. This comes in really handy, especially for like you wedding photographers, portrait photographers. You process one and you have a bunch that are all similar. You could save a lot of time by doing this little trick. What we're going to do is sync all of these to the settings of the one I just did. So what we do is you click on the one that's already processed. Make sure that you click on that one first. Then you want to click on the rest of the images. Now you could do them one by one by holding the Control if you have a PC or Command if you have a Mac key in while you click. So I could hold this Command key in and click on this one and keep the Command key held in and click on that one. You could undo one by just keeping the Command key clicked in and click on again. Another way, if they're right in a row like they are here, is just click on the one that's already processed, hold the Shift key in, and then click down the last one and you'll select them all. Okay, so they're all selected. We're in the Develop module. You can see over here, Sync. Click on Sync. This box will pop up and it's going to ask you what you want to sync. Right now, they're all checked. You could check none, check all, or go and uncheck or recheck them individually. What you want to be careful of, if you did an image and you did, let's say, a portrait, and you removed some pimples on some people in the portrait with the spot removal tool, in subsequent images, if they moved a little bit, the spot removal tool won't move with their zit. Okay, it's going to stay in the exact same spot. So you may want to like click this spot removal, like unclick it, I should say, or uncheck it, so that you're not doing the spot. Now, on the other hand, if you did a landscape and you're on a tripod and you had sensor spots and you did like 22 sensor spots and your tripod didn't move from that spot, you were just taking, let's say, a sunset over a 45-minute period, just you could do the spot removal on all of them. So, just do that. So I'm going to keep them all checked because that's fine for me on this image. And I'm going to click Synchronize. And you can see almost immediately now, they're all processed exactly like that first one. Now on this one here, as you can see, that vignette is a little more noticeable and I don't like that. So I want to readjust this one. Now they're all selected, so if I start moving a slider around, it's going to affect them all. So what I do is I could hold the Command key in or Control if you have a PC and start clicking on the ones I don't want selected. A faster way is just click on one that that is not included in the group, and then click back on the one that you want to readjust. And we're going to go down here to Effects, and we're going to pull that vignette back on that. Now on this one here, part of the wall got in there. So I think I should crop this one. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pull down here. It's pretty much like that, I think, and hit enter. So there's that. So you could come in, and after you sync them, don't let that dissuade you from going in and doing some touch-up adjustments. Maybe that in this one, maybe it's sharpened too much or something like that, and I could go in and readjust sharpening or whatever. So that's how you would save time by syncing your adjustments that you did on one image on a great number of images. All right, now we're going to do one more image. This is just a really kind of simple image that I took of Gettysburg. This is General Warren standing on a rock overlooking the battlefield. And I just want to show you how fast I will typically process an image. So I decided I want to adjust this image. I go right up to the basic panel. What I should do is reset it because I had it adjusted. So reset. Sorry about that. I thought I did that to begin with. So okay, we reset it because I adjusted that before. So what I will do now is, as I look at it, it's horribly crooked, and that is disgusting. So I will come up here to the crop tool, and there's a lot of different ways you could adjust to make it level. You could just use this slider here and spin it around like that. Let me reset that. Or you could just hover outside, and you could see your cursor turns into this double arrow, and you could click down and you could spin it like that to straighten them out. Or let me see if I can reset that again. Or you could click right here on this angle tool, and you have this angle tool, and if you have a distinct clear horizon line, you could just draw a line right along the horizon line that's crooked, and when you let go, it'll straighten the image. And then when you're satisfied with that, you just close the image down. So now we straightened it. Now we're going to go into the basic panel, and right away I jump to highlights, and I look around, and I kind of like it right there. I'm going to open up shadows quite a bit to there. Then I am going to jump down to the tone curve, and I do medium. I'm going to go rather quickly now because I'm showing you how quickly I usually process an image. I like strong contrast on this guy here. I'm going to go back up to the basic panel. I'm going to adjust my white and black point by holding my Alt or Option key in and move to the right till something bleeds through, and then back it off. Then similarly for backs, hold that Alt or Option key and go down on blacks, and then till it's about there. And that looks good. I'm going to add some clarity, which I usually would have added sooner, but I'm kind of thinking on the run. I'm going to add some vibrance, and that looks good. I don't like the tone curve on strong contrast now, so I'm going to go back to medium. That looks better. I'm done with the basic panel. I'm going to go to the HSL panel. I'm going to add some blue saturation, and I'm going to add some yellow and orange saturation. And then I'm going to go to the luminance part of it, and I'm going to pull blue down to make the sky a little darker. And I'm going to go to the green and push it up and make it a little brighter and make yellow a little brighter. And I'm done with that. I'm not doing any split toning. I'm going to do quick and dirty sharpening. I'm going to have the amount somewhere in the 70s, and the noise reduction, it's lagging a little bit here. This I recently changed my hard drive. I have it on my Lightroom files on a portable hard drive, portable LaCie hard drive, whereas before I had it on a desktop LaCie hard drive. And the desktop LaCie hard drive was 72 RPM and just was a lot faster. This one lags a little more. Lens corrections, I'm going to go back to the basic panel, enable profile corrections. You can see it corrected a lot there. I'm going to remove chromatic aberration, go to profile. I can see my lenses listed. Then I'm going to go to effects and I'm going to add a tiny vignette like that. And then I'm going to go to camera calibration and I'm going to look. Now these are different than my Fuji because I shot this with a Nikon. I think I did this with my D800E. Yeah, this is a huge file you could see here. And yeah, it was 1/320th of a second, f11 ISO 100, a 28 to 300 millimeter lens shot at 28 millimeters. And I'm going to look at camera landscape, and it really saturated it. Camera neutral, I don't like the lack of contrast. And camera portrait came out kind of looking pretty cool, even though it's a landscape. Camera standard is nice. Camera vivid. Okay, I just kind of like camera standard, so we're going to go with that. Okay, I almost forgot. I was going to show you what that one slider or single slider photo pop. And remember, we're in the camera calibration tab. And I think this will be a good image to demonstrate it. I'm going to get rid of this information up here by hitting the I key. And again, you go down to where it says blue primary and you go to saturation. And if you watch the image, I'm going to just push that saturation slider all the way to the right. And you can see how it really kind of enhances the foliage and the sky at the same time. And it's really a little trick a lot of photographers use. A lot of, even wedding photographers to landscape photographers by just pushing that slider. And I've had people email me and mention that often they'll just try all three. They'll push them around by themselves to see what they might do, like that. And it's something you might want to experiment. But primarily, I found the blue primary area, the saturation slider, move that to the right, and it really enhances your image. And I think I'm done. I'll wait for it to render. You can see there's a little spinning wheel sometimes here as it renders. If you look right here, watch, I'm going to move it around. You can see as it renders. Yeah, it's got a lot of nice detail. I think we're good to go. Sensor spots, I think I only have one on this lens up in the corner, if you remember right, or on this camera I said one sensor spot. You saw from my previous ones, and since I straightened this, it got cropped out, I believe. So I'm done. That's how fast you could really process an image once you really get in a groove and in a way of doing it that is conducive to the way you like processing your images. So that's it for this episode. Um, Obviously, I did a little quicker this. The last episode was so long, and I apologize for that. I really don't want my videos to be that long. So I hope you gained something in this episode. I'm going to do one more episode where I'm going to process some images and introduce some new things in Lightroom that I haven't already talked about. After I do that episode, I'm going to do HDR and panoramas. I don't know in what order, but I'm going to do those in the next two episodes. And then after that, I'm going to have one episode where I kind of like sum everything up and cover anything I failed to cover already. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm going to talk about the raw files. And at the beginning in episodes 1 or 2, I talked that I'm going to be making the raw files available for sale. And that really kind of bothers me that I'm selling them, to tell you the honest God truth. I gave them away at the beginning of the Lightroom 5 videos. When I was doing Lightroom 5, those of you that followed me back then, I was giving away the raw files. Unfortunately, a number of unscrupulous people were using my raw files and passing them off as their own, and actually, at least in one of those cases, was actively trying to sell them. And that really kind of got me upset because I'm trying to help everyone with their photography, and then people just decide to steal files, which is kind of rude. So I pulled them. I wasn't giving them away anymore. I just kind of took my football and went home. You know what I mean? So I want to make them available for people to use them. So I'm going to have them. I initially was going to have I was going to have these files, the videos themselves. You could buy those, even though they're always going to be free on YouTube. I was going to have the videos so you could purchase, and when you purchase the videos, you'll get all the raw files. Well, I'm still going to do that, but I'm going to make the raw files available for nominal purchase separately. So if you don't want the videos, you could buy the raw files. They're going to be cheap. I haven't decided on a price yet, but probably around 10 bucks. And you get all the raw files. And the reason why I'm charging though is because when you buy them, you have to pay for them. You give your name and address. And I'll have a name and address to go with them. So I have some control. I know where they went. So I hope you folks understand that. As for the videos, I was very disappointed in the quality of these videos. I had audio problems with the first two or three out of nowhere. I've been doing videos for a year and a half, 2 years now, and out of nowhere the audio was horrible. I think I've conquered that. The audio is better now. And then I've made some really ridiculous mistakes throughout the videos, and I had to correct things you probably noticed with text on the screen. So, as soon as these videos are done, that's in basically 4 more episodes. That's when these group of videos are done. I'm going to have the raw files available right away. You could purchase those. But I'm going to redo the videos. They're going to be, of course, slightly different because I'm not going to be reading from a script, but it's going to be the same exact information. I'm going to redo the videos for those who purchase it. So then later on, it's probably going to take me a couple weeks. You could buy the videos themselves if you prefer to have them on a disc or on your computer at home. You could buy them. But again, to say it again, they're always going to be on YouTube for free as long as YouTube allows them to be on there. So they're going to be free on YouTube. I'm not going to ever pull them off of YouTube. So I hope everyone could understand why I'm doing what I'm doing with the raw files. Again, I appreciate everyone watching my videos. Thank you very, very much. That's enough for now from me. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.